Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie Photography. So, crazy 4 minute exposure. How did I do it? Well, I'm going to take you through on this video and show you how I process this image. But just to give you a little bit of an explanation about how did we get to 4 minutes. Well, I've recently been trying a new filter system made by a company called Freewell. Here they are, Freewell. They make a really nice range of filters. Now, I'm not really a filter person, but in this case, it gave the 3 to 7 stop variable ND filter, but it also gave a polarizing filter all built into the same unit, and it does have a very good magnetic dust cover arrangement, and it's quite strong. It stays on in your bag, which is really nice. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that through this demonstration. So if you feel inclined to purchase one and join me using one, then I'll put a link down below where you can get one from. So very helpful company, and I've liked using the unit. Also, if you've got time, pop over and have a look at my website. There's lots going on there, and I've got a nighttime sky pack available still. There is one workshop left for this year, which is the English Medieval Cities Tour, which will include Bath, which is where we are in this image here. Bath, down in the southwest of England, and this is the beautiful ancient city of Bath, which is in fact where the name Bath comes from. It comes from this city. The Romans built a set of baths here because there's a hot spring here back about 2,000 years ago. Those baths are still there. You can still go and visit them. The city was built up around this, and this is sort of the main waterfront area on the River Avon. And there's a beautiful weir here. You can go and visit Bath. Lots to see in Bath. Very old city, medieval and before. Back to Roman times, so great place to go and visit. So yeah, how did we get 4 minute exposure? Well, I used the Freewell 3 to 7 ND filter with the polarizer, and you can see how dark the sky is here. But we did start off with this image here, which is the original shot. As you can see, 240 seconds. But what we did do, we also added an ND1000 filter, a 10 stop ND filter behind the 3 to 7 stop variable, so that we could start at 13 stops, and then we could turn it down once we understood the calculation for how many stops of light that we needed. Now, I do like to shoot around f8 or f9. I could have gone to a f11 here or even f16, which could have given me an 8 or even a 16-minute exposure time. But the problem with that is that the sensor does get quite warm the longer you leave it open, and you'll see here that there are a few hot pixels, and I'll talk a little bit how we deal with those shortly. But also the clouds get drawn out, and I find 2 to 4 minute exposure gives you a lovely draw on the clouds, so it gives you quite a nice effect. And of course, because we were using the polarizing filter, which is built into that Freewell 3 to 7 stop, we were able to get a dark colored blue here. But you do notice the vignette, and again, I'll talk a little bit about that as we go into the video. So if you like what I'm doing here on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe and join me. If you like the video, please click like down below. And of course, I always love to see your comments, questions, and any tips you might have. So feel free to put those down below. Okay, let's get started. So 4 minute exposure, crazy, right? So how did we get a 4 minute exposure? Well, I used two ND filters. I used the Freewell 3 to 7 stop filter that I just mentioned, and I also added an additional ND1000 filter to the system, so they were combined together, one behind the other, and that gave me anywhere between 13 to 17 stops of reduction. On a bright sunny day, you really do need to bring that brightness down to be able to get such long exposures. And actually, if you calculate the ND rating, bear in mind 10 stops is ND 1000. Well, in fact, 17 stops is actually ND 128,000. So it's a huge decrease. And you can see from the corners of the image that we do have a vignette. So because you've got two filters stacked on top of each other, they stick out a little bit further. And when you're shooting at 14mm, very wide here, you will catch the corners. So we will recrop to deal with that. But also when you do a longer exposure, you have to think how your camera can be set to do this. Do you have a plug-in shutter release so that you can hold it for 4 minutes? Or does your camera have an interferometer built in so you can actually go into bulb mode? And on the Canon R5 there is an interferometer mode. You go into bulb, you can then go in and select how long you want that bulb setting to be, and it's pretty well limitless. You can choose how many shots you want to take and how long each one is. So in this case, I calculated that with the 7-stop and the 10-stop ND filter, I was able to get to 4 minutes. I could have pushed it to 8 minutes, but I thought, well, 4 minutes is probably good enough to give some draw in the sky, so effectively the clouds get drawn across the sky, and also any water becomes absolutely glass smooth. And you can see here also from the waterfall that we've got here in Bath, it looks really quite lovely. If I just zoom in on that to show you, we'll go in there, you get a beautiful waterfall effect. So working through my normal workflow here, I'm going to do noise reduction first of all. You might ask why it's at 100 ISO, but the noise does build up over time if you have the shutter left open for a longer period, because the shutter gets warm. The sensor gets warm, and the effect of that is to increase noise. And if I look at the sky up here and zoom right in, let's go into 300%, you'll see that there is a little bit of noise there in the sky. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the detail section. We're going to go to denoise. We're going to click denoise, and then we're going to select about 35%. It doesn't need a huge amount because it is it's a pretty clean image anyway, and you have the before and the after. So we'll click enhance. I'm not going to tick create stack because that puts the original behind the new enhanced version of the image in the film strip at the bottom. I want to keep them separate, so I'm just going to click enhance, and you'll see up in the top left corner there that it's just going to run through and denoise this image, and that will improve the noise, particularly in the sky. And there you go, that's the new image. So definitely an improvement before and the after, so a definite improvement there. We can now work with the image. Now if you do extend your image out 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes, what you will find is that any pixels that you have that may be slightly faulty on the sensor, and all cameras have it, it doesn't matter where you are, the longer you own the camera also, the more pixels that you get, they're called hot pixels. And if I zoom in, you'll see there's a few of them here, and effectively they get hot and they overexpose just that single pixel, and they do show up as these little white dots. So what we do need to do is just make sure that they're all removed, and the best way to do that is to go into the heal tool here, the remove tool, and select heal. You can see there the middle one, which is the little band-aid, the little plaster there. And then if you go down in that heal module there, you'll see this visualize spots. If you tick that, if you check that box, what will happen is you'll get this sort of embossed style image. It looks quite good actually. And you can move the slider to increase or decrease the amount of sensitivity. And as you can see, when I'm down here, I can see these hot pixels down the bottom here on the water, maybe one there. Can't see many in the sky. So if I slide this over to the right, bring it up as, it can go all the way, but it becomes a bit crazy. But if I bring it up there, you can see that there are quite a few little hot pixels because of the length of the exposure that tends to bring these out. So you just use the heal tool, try and keep the brush as small as possible, and you can just literally just click over them and remove them one at a time, and they will disappear. The heal tool is very good at dealing with these things. We also use it for any dust that you may have on the sensor. If you've got any dust bunnies showing on on the actual image itself. You can visualize them using this same approach. One good thing about some of the more modern cameras, and the Canon R5 is definitely very good for this. It, when you switch it off, it brings the shutter down over the sensor. So when you come to change lenses, there is in fact always a shutter in front of the sensor. So that does reduce the amount of dust that you get on the sensor. But if you just use sort of standard, sort of clean approach to using your photography, try not to change lenses in the field, particularly when it's windy, or if it's, certainly if it's dusty. If you're out on safari or something like that, the last thing you want to do is take your lens off your camera to change it. So you know, if you do manage to go maybe on a safari or somewhere really incredible like that, it's worth just spending a little bit extra money and maybe hiring a second camera just for that time that you're there, and that will reduce the risk because you can keep the lens on the camera all the time that you're there. So I've gone as far as I can see here in terms of hot pixels. So if I switch visualize off and go back to the image itself, you can see there's still one or two just showing as we go around. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit as well. I use the space bar to move around, and I can see one there. There's a one there, and there's one there. And it's just having a quick look around just to make sure there's no other pixels showing themselves too obvious. I think we're pretty good. There's one down there, look. And just check round and you're clear, and I think we're pretty good there. Okay, whilst we're in the remove function, I'm going to pop over into the sort of content aware remove. Now, we do have the tokens issue with generative AI. It is important to understand that when you use generative remove, you do use a token from your sort of bank of tokens that you're given each month by Adobe. And in the case of myself, I use the photography pack, which includes Lightroom and Photoshop, and I get 250 tokens per month. And if you're careful, I find that that's more than enough for what I do. But of course, some images need more removal than others, and in this case, we've got these lots of these little labels and signs along the edge of this here, and you've got a big sign here, and I'd like to remove those things. And I did also notice over here that somebody had left their trousers on the edge here, so we'll remove those as well. So rather than switching generative AI on, or even object aware, leave those two unchecked, switched off, and just use the content aware tool. And as you see here with these pants, if I zoom in here, what we can do is take a smallish brush, we can draw around there with the remove tool. So looking at some of the other areas here, there's a bit of rope or something dropping down here. So again, just using remove tool. Don't need the AI function on there. It's quite capable of removing little bits and pieces. I'm not a big fan of alarm boxes, so whilst we're here, we're just going to take out the alarm boxes as well. There's a few along here. And you know, if you're going to turn this into a piece of digital art, you can also look to, if you wish, to remove the cables and things that you see running along the front of the buildings. I'm not going to go completely crazy here today, just going to take out the main issues here. And I'm not, as I say, I'm not a big fan of alarm boxes, so we'll just remove those. There's a parking sign here as well, so we'll just remove that. And you can literally just work your way along, make sure there's nothing there that's sort of sticking out too obvious. So we'll go down here. There's that big yellow sign. We just want to get rid of that as well. So just make sure you cover, they fill it in. There we go. And it will deal with that quite well. So stick in the water there. Right, down here, just quickly deal with these signs. How good it really did work, and you can see there where there was some posts missing. I just go back over them. You see the railing's not complete there. If I just click on that, it will put the railing back in for us. So the remove tool actually adds things as well as removes. So just bear that in mind as well when you see things you want to remove. Just see the little, there's a car there. Look, we're just going to take that car out there. So that's fine. Window over on the church distracting through the tree, but I think we're pretty good. One more sign there. And I'm just going to get rid of these spotlights as well. I'm not a big fan of these lights. At night it looks lovely down here on the weir. These lights light it all up, but we'll just take those out for the purpose of this. There's one more hot pixel there, so just make my brush a little bit smaller. That's good. Now what I did see is we do have somebody was obviously stood still for a number of minutes. Even though this is a 4-minute exposure, we can just take them out of there as well. That's fine. Now one thing I do want to deal with is up here is just want to take out, I did see a little area on the roof there. That's fine. Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly get rid of these little lightning conductors here, just so we've got that sort of old style look. They didn't have those in the Victorian times. And should we remove these railings? I did remove these over here. I just didn't show it because it took a little bit of time, but I could just show you here. We could click on generative AI, and what we can do is we can just draw in along these lines here. Just cover the area you want to remove. There we go. And then we can just make sure we've got everything there. So we can take a smaller brush here and just make sure we've got the bottom of that in there. There we go. And then we can click apply, and it will just run through the generative AI function, something I think we're all quite familiar with. We do like to use. There we go. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Good. Okay. So a lot of removing there. Let's go to let's look to do the next steps with this image. I just want to be sure that we've got the perspective correct. So I'm just going to come out of the heal tool here, and we're just going to go down to transform. I'm going to click auto, and it just squares everything up a little bit. That's fine. Now, this is the real trick when you've got a 4-minute exposure. We used a polarizing filter, as I said earlier. So as well as the ND filters to get to this length of exposure, and what it does, it gives us a really dark sort of blue in the sky. So what we're going to do is we're going to process this image using standard techniques. I'm just going to bring down the highlights, bring those down to about -75. I'm going to open up the shadows just to bring this reflection into the water. You can see that there. You've got quite a color hue coming from the reflection of all of this stone here into the water. So this, I think, is going to be a black and white image. I want to go black and white with it. I think with the longer exposures you can get some really interesting effects. So what we're going to do is firstly we're going to try and darken down this sky. So I'm going to go to masks, I'm going to select sky, and then when the mask selects the sky, there we go, I'm going to drop the exposure down quite a way. There we go, about 1.5 stops. I'm going to just add in a little bit more blue to the sky. That works quite well. We want to sort of darken this area as well, and along here. So I'm going to go to create another mask, this time a linear gradient, and I'm going to pull a linear gradient in from the bottom. I'm going to sort of run it along this same sort of line of the water edge here. So this is 100% effect, this is 0 effect. So whatever we apply will be a gradient from 100% to 0% here. So if I drop the exposure again to sort of darken down this area over here, I don't want to lose this reflection. So I'm going to just open up the shadows again inside of that. May even bring this back a little bit and turn it a little bit more just to run with this line, as you can see, rather than this line. And then that will just darken this corner down a little bit over here. I'm going to add another linear gradient to this corner, a shorter one, so we can darken this piece down here a little bit more again. So I'm just going to bring that exposure down just a little bit more. That's looking fine. So the whole image we want to darken as well. So I'm just going to come out of masks here a second. I'm just going to darken the whole image down ever so slightly. I'm going to bring it, should I go 1 full stop? I might go 1 full stop down, -1. They might say, wow, this is way too dark. but now with the option to relight the area. And it's part of my sort of day to night process that I use, which hopefully you've seen me do. It's about darkening the image and then relighting the image where you want the light. So in this case, I want to emphasize the hotel here. I want to emphasize the Victorian stonework, and of course the weir and the sky. So to do that, I'm going to go back into mask. I'm going to create a new mask, take a radial gradient, and I'm going to take a really quite a large radial gradient here. I'm going to turn it at an angle, put the bright spot over here, and then I'm just going to pull that right out. So we're sort of trying to light this whole area here, and then we're just going to brighten that up. Just going to bring that up there. It's a little bit bright down this end, so we'll extend that in a second. But I want this quite bright down this end of it here, but I don't want to light the sky, so I'm just going to subtract from this mask the sky. Okay, keep the sky nice and dark up there, and we've lit this up more. But what we can do whilst we're in this mask is we can go to add, we can take a brush, we can go 100% filter, so it's got nice soft edges, and we'll go about 50% flow, and take a slightly larger brush, and then we can just brush more light into this area over here. You can see we're still using that radial gradient settings, but what we're doing is we're just brushing in more light. But because we have the sky subtracted, we're only lighting the building, we're not lighting the sky when we draw there. It's going to light up the weir as well, just put a bit brightness in that. And also I want to lighten, can you see I'm just lightening up the reflection in the water. So that's looking pretty good. Let's just give that a little bit more. There we go. And I think what we might do is just add a little bit of clarity to that image. There we go. Just to the radial gradient, and a little tiny bit of texture because we've got all these windows and doors. That looks pretty good as well. Now I'm going to create another mask. This time it's just a brush on its own. Okay, I'm going to make sure that we've got 100% feather, 50% flow. I'm going to bring the exposure up slightly, and I want to light this reflection just a little bit more. So just want to bring that in there just a little bit more. Again, add in some clarity just to help it keep its detail. And in this case, I'm going to add some contrast as well, just to make it stand out, just that little bit down there. Just brighten it just a little bit more, not too much. I want to keep that contrast in place. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. So next step is, let's think about the trees over here. The light coming onto these trees is beautiful. I think that's really, really good. So let's create another brush in the masks. Let's, in this case, select a little bit of highlights, a little bit of exposure. But the important thing is we select auto mask this time, so that when we click on the trees, I'm going to take a slightly smaller brush, whatever the light area is the area that we'll light. So if we come around there, we can light these trees just on their bright edges. Just going to put a bit of light in that tree there as well. As you can see, we can just go over here and light those bushes and the grass, just to make them pop a little bit more in the shot. I'm just going to add a little bit more around here on this stonework as well. There we go. A little bit in the distance there. Yep, that looks nice. Really makes this area over here sort of stand out a little bit. I'm going to create another mask. I'm going to go and take another radial gradient, and this time this area up in the sky here where the clouds are, I'm going to take a big radial gradient here, and we're just going to boost the lightness of those clouds over here. We're going to bring up the exposure, going to bring up the contrast. There we go. And I might even just increase the highlights slightly just to make this corner pop that little bit more. I'm going to come down a little bit more there. That looks good. So we're bringing that light into dark over here. I think that works very, very well. You know what? I think we're pretty well as far as we can go really here in the color scene. What I want to do is take it into the black and white, and then we can just finish the image off. But before you go black and white, one of the things I like to do, just come out of the mask here, is when you know you're going black and white, take the vibrance slider and really apply quite a high degree of vibrance there. I'm going to go about 40 on the vibrance. I'm even going to bring the saturation up just a little bit, right? Really makes the colors pop, about 10 on the saturation. You can see this has really come alive. So very vivid colors. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into black and white. So you can see that at the top, we're going to click black and white. We can take it into the black and white, and then we can just do the final adjustments to make sure we're happy. So I do want to just sort out the crop. So I'm just going to select a 16:10 on the crop there. There we go. And that will just take out those dark corners that we had. Hit return. So we've got the reflections that we wanted there. Still a little bit dark at the corners, but I'm going to put a post-crop vignette in on this anyway. Just going to bring up the highlights just slightly in the scene, not too much, just to brighten that area. So you've got this brightness coming down through the light pushing out onto here. And I'm just going to raise the contrast just a little bit more. Still maintaining the lovely reflection down here, and a little bit more clarity. We think that helps. And a little bit of texture. So I think that's pretty good. Works quite well. Just go down to the bottom. We're going to go down to effects. We're going to put in a post-crop vignette. So I'm just going to go about 25. Quite a heavy vignette there, but I'm just going to open the feather up to 100 on there, and that makes the image work quite well. I'm even tempted to take this to a 16:9 instead of a 16:10, so I could go back into the crop, select a 16. Select a 16:9, there we go, and hit return, and that works extremely well. A little bit bright over here, so I'm just going to go back into our masks, select the mask that we had over here, this one, and just drop the brightness ever so slightly in this area here. That's okay. Maybe just keep that a little bit brighter actually. And what we could do is inside that mask we could just subtract a brush and make sure we've got lots of feather, low flow. Take quite a big brush and then just darken this area down just a little bit, because it's just a little bit too bright over here. Make the brush even bigger. Get even bigger. There we go. Just brush that down a little bit. A little bit extra on the highlights, and I think that's a very nice black and white. Now I'm just going to jump back and show you how I actually like to use Silver Efex. It's from the DxO range of software. So I'm just going to jump back where we did convert to black and white. Just go back before we did that. There we go. We've got the high saturation, the high vibrance that we talked about. I'm going to right click, go to edit in, go to Silver Efex Pro. And to be honest, the difference between Silver Efex Pro 2 and 3 and the latest versions is very, very small. If you can find a copy of the older ones, a little bit cheaper. But if you do want to buy Silver Efex Pro from DxO, you do have to buy their entire suite, unfortunately, rather than just the Silver Efex Pro. But it is a great piece of software. I'll just show you quickly what it can do here. I'm going to just click that edit copy with Lightroom adjustments, with all the adjustments that we've made. I'll click edit and it will open the software for us. And it's just preparing the file. There we go. So I've made some favorites of the presets in the library. These are for the black and whites here, obviously. And so you've got where we are at the moment, which is the image that we brought over. And then you've got like high structure, harsh, and high structure smooth. I always like high structure smooth. I think that works very, very well. You get this sort of real boost in structure. You can still see the edge there, so we will have to just make this image just a little bit smaller when we crop to come back. There are others here. You can go with a full spectrum on the smooth, and you can also go down to a fine art setting, which I always think is quite nice as well. But in this case, I'm going to go with high structure smooth. I'm just going to boost the brightness here ever so slightly, so I can go up to the sliders here and just put in a little bit more brightness in there. I can increase the structure slightly as well. Just be careful. These are powerful tools. You don't want to have too much in there. You do have some sliders for shadows. I can open the shadows up a little bit more, and I can bring the highlights down just a little bit more as well, just to give you that full contrast in the tonal display. Then you have some filters you can use. These control points, by the way, you can be selective with what you want to do. You can select that here, and you can pop it out here, make it bigger or smaller, and say, well, just that area I want affected by some additional structure, for example. So you can just add structure into localized in the area if you want to. Then you have the filters. If I go blue, of course the sky is blue, so that will pick up a lot more light as opposed to the red filter, which of course is the opposite of the blue, so you get a very dark sky. So you can go through the filters and look at what the effect is. That's the yellow, that's the orange, that's the red, and back to the neutral, which is the grey. So the green's quite nice because it lights these trees up even more. So I might go with the green there, maybe, or the yellow. Compromise with the yellow. Yeah. Then you can go down and you can be selective with the colors. So because we increased the vibrance and the saturation before we went over, those colors are reflected here. So you can see the green on the trees. We can make the green on the trees brighter, as you see there, or we can make the green on the trees darker. So we can affect the individual colors as well. Blue sky can make even darker if we want to. There we go, have a very dark sky, or we can lighten that blue up slightly. So depending on the effect that you want, you can make those changes. So I'm just going to bring the yellow back just a little bit on the whole scene. And then you've got tonal curves as well. I don't tend to use that, but you can if you want, just apply a little bit of an S curve there, just to add even more contrast if you want to the scene. In this case, I'm not going to use that. And then you got the toning, the finishing adjustments here, and this is the one that I really like. In the toning, you can select all of your different sort of black and white palette colors from sepia all the way through copper tone, and the one I like is selenium, and number 4. It gives you a ever so slight color change. Works very, very well. And then you've got more vignette functions if you want to. Here you can select, I can go for a white frame vignette if I want to and whiten the edges. I can go for a black frame effect, and that will darken the edges. Yeah. So in this case, I'm probably just going to go with a lens fall off 1. And then when you're done, you can click save, and it will send it back into Lightroom for you. So we'll just let it do that. So here we are, we're back. It's come back as a TIFF. So just want to check the crop again. So I'm going to go back to the 16:9 to make sure I'm happy with that. Just going to bring that up slightly so that the window is in the reflection there. Hit return. Just going to brighten the whole scene ever so slightly. That's nice. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. That's Bath. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. If you've got any comments, questions, or any tips you'd like to give me, feel free to do so down below. Always love to read those, and I do my best to answer all of them. And if you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to join me on this adventure here on YouTube. And for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.